How's it going, friends? This is Bill MacDonald, the writing doctor here. Welcome to part two of our webinar, SWAG, Supporting and Scaffolding Writing Across Grades. In our first video, for those of you that registered, for those of you who registered, we got to spend 3 hours working through the first portion of it. And as I promised, there would be an extra 2 or 3 videos to supplement to kind of help you guys make it through the entire handout. And those of you who didn't get to register get to see part 2 and part 3 for free. It would be great if you would get part 1. You don't necessarily need any handouts for part 2 and part 3. You can kind of just follow along and take notes. But hopefully we'll see you guys at a future webinar. Today I thought I would come to you from the Great Rocky Mountains. Not really, but I just wanted an outdoor setting for my background. I was kind of missing being able to be out in nature. So if I can't do it in real life, I figured I would do it at least on my computer there. So let me show you what part 2 is going to be consisting of. In part 1, we made it through the first 6 sections of this goal and objective for the webinar yesterday. We used our ability to see to learn lots of sign language techniques using a flower, and I'll briefly show that to you so you can see what we were talking about. And then once we drew the complete flower, we practiced speaking our writing responses for both non-writers and writers, and it was causing the teachers in yesterday's webinar to actually think about capitalization and punctuation and responding in complete sentences that had both a subject and a predicate. We also discussed onomatopoeia and how kids can relate that to sounds that things make and syllables that are sometimes needed to be made in order to eventually construct words with our mouths and with our pencils. And we understood the concept of either clapping our hands to count the syllables, to speaking out the syllable, or to snap the syllables. That way we can listen carefully for how many syllables a certain word has, because, for example, white is different than quiet. Who has the same amount of letters as how. They're just in a different order, so you're not going to be able to listen for the difference between who and how. You're going to have to see the difference, and so that's where number 1 comes in. And we talked about the importance of spelling, taking pictures of individual letters and the ways they're facing, because some kids have trouble with simple things like B and D, or the 2 sticks are on the outside and the circles are on the inside. Elemento P, Q, where the sticks are still on the outside, they're still in alphabetical order, but now the tails are underneath the line, so if they're lowercase, they have to be halfway under the line. And a lot of kids with Y's and P's that are lowercase, they're getting away with leaving them above the line, which makes them look more like a capital letter. So because of that, we stress the importance of the size of each letter, lowercase and uppercase, the amount of spacing between each word and each letter if you're going to be writing in print versus cursive. And we talked a little bit about just introducing subject writing. So that's what I'm going to continue on today, responding to topics and questions with words, phrases, and complete sentences in all grade levels, regardless of ability. So what we're going to do today in this video, we are going to, let me use some of my cool little contraptions here. We are going to work on number 6 first, responding to questions, because we need to have every teacher understanding we live in an open-ended world until we get into school where it mostly becomes multiple choice. And if you're married, your husband or your wife did not have the letter A, B, C, D, or F, G, H, J on their shirt and you did the process of elimination, that's crazy. You had to just select based on certain criteria that you thought was important for a spouse, for someone to spend the rest of your life with. And the state is understanding that we're getting too much into the multiple choice world and not enough higher level thinking, critical thinking is taking place. So we're going to show you in this video, part 1 of the video is going to be how do we do subject writing where we answer questions with our mouths, with capitalization, with punctuation, and with our pencils. So let me show you based on something that I've already done for you through my document camera. I went ahead and thought of 13 different school-related functions, and I thought to myself, if I was a teacher or I was asking a question or making a statement in one of these 13 areas of school, using the W's or the H's that have been circled, what kind of questions could we ask and have them be answered by our students? So let me show you using a flower that the teachers and I drew together as the beginning part of the training learning sign language. So you see right there a flower, and every hour of the clock is used for a petal except 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock has a yellow stem. So if you notice, the 3 colors that I used for this flower are red for the questions or the teak, yellow for the answers, the idea, the central idea statement in 4th grade, controlling idea statement in 7th, the thesis statement in 9th, and the position statement in 10th. In order to turn from red to yellow, you have to be able to answer the question with a word, a phrase, or a complete sentence. In order to go green, you've got to tell me why that's your answer. And you can either give me 1 reason or 2 reasons why. That makes your response go green. Hopefully all kinder students and even pre-K and above should be able to answer a question in a complete sentence and then tell you why. Think of W as in Wonder Woman. What is the answer? Why is it the answer? Or if you have kids who struggle, what is the question? Yellow. What is the answer? And if you can go for it, why is it the answer? If you're a WWE wrestler, you'll say, what's the answer? Why is it the answer? And give me an example of what you mean. And that turns green to greener. But in order to get 3s and 4s in expository and a good grade in the lower grades, my grade is not sufficient. 1st grade would only have 1 sentence. I want my age or more to get a good score. That means a 6-year-old would hopefully have 6 sentences or more in response to any question about one of these petals on the flower. In order to get at the greenest, we need to explain ourselves if we're doing an expository piece or an event, such as an experience, a personal narrative, or a story. We need to explode. Take that one event. Yesterday, somebody mentioned about being at a birthday party. So I said, what's one event that could take place at a birthday party? Because it's not really where you go. It's what you do when you're there that allows you to explode the experience. And so look for, if there's like 10 events at the birthday party, say, just focus on just you being on the, uh, what do they call it? They call those things the explode, when you blow up you're inside the moon jump, the moon jump. Um, there's another name for it, but I can't think of it right now. So I would just want you to explode. So tell me just the event. Uh, what did you do at the party? And they would have to say why they did it, possibly, give an example. Or if you're just telling a story, all you got to do is tell me, who were you with? Where was it at? When did it take place? Why did you go on that moon jump? And then we're going to help them explode that one event. And most kids have limited experiences, so sometimes I would do what I call a live composition, where I would bring that event right there to the students and allow them to experience the event first before they had to write about it afterwards. And that's called a live composition that I would recommend that you do with your kids. So let's take a look, starting at 12 o'clock. What? How? Who? Which? Where? Right? You're right. Right? Right? When? Whether? I don't know whether or not. What about the importance, when they ask the 7th graders or in the 9th graders, what about the importance of some idea? There's always going to be what they call in 7th grade a controlling idea statement that responds to that topic, the importance of something that they talk about. What about the importance of honesty? And so you've got to decide on one idea that has to do with that topic of honesty. And that's where the 9th and 10th grade comes in. And then for all expository and persuasive, you've got to tell me why, but sometimes the question can be a why. So what I've done for you is I've asked some questions for those of you that attended the webinar and have the handout. It's on page 10. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my glasses so I can read my own questions a little bit easier. For math, they might ask a question, what does it mean to find the best estimate of the difference of two numbers? I'm doing a webinar next Thursday in 3rd grade, for 3rd grade teachers in math, and Friday for 4th grade teachers. So if you teach 4th grade, I would suggest you attend the 3rd grade for the supporting standards. It's basically using questions similar to the most difficult questions from the 2019 test. And 3rd grade would be readiness for 3rd grade. 3rd grade would be supporting standards for 4th grade and the 4th grade training. So they asked this question to 4th graders, what is the best estimate of the difference? And only 47% of the kids in Texas got that question correct, and that was in May. That means they didn't understand that estimate means round it first. Difference means you subtract. And so all your kids had to know kinesthetically was, oh, as soon as they see estimate, take two numbers, take a number and decide, do I put it to the lower 10 or the higher 10, the lower 100 or the higher 100? And then you do the difference, you subtract. And that's just one of 100 math strategies you're going to learn next Thursday and Friday if you teach 3rd or 4th grade. 5th grade teachers, you might attend tell your math grade teachers from 5th grade to attend the 4th grade so they can see the supporting standards. For music, we have a how. How do you explain the difference between a half and quarter note on sheet music? I believe a half note looks like a quarter note, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm answering the question. A half note looks similar to a quarter note, except the half note is empty, if I'm not mistaken, white, and a quarter note is black. So message me or make a comment if that answer was wrong. Because I've been reading, I play saxophone and I'm learning guitar, but I'm playing more by ear than by note. Reading, let's ask a why, not YMCA, who cares about that? Why do you think one of Billy's coonhounds died in Where the Red Fern Grows? One of the dogs died because it got injured so badly that it died from its wounds. The other dog died. I think the name of the 2 dogs were Old Dan and Little Ann. And one of the 2 dogs died. I can't remember which one. One of them died of a broken heart because he or she just could not live without the other dog. It's interesting how dogs are loyal to each other and they're loyal to their owners even more than humans are sometimes. That might be a reading question I might ask for one of the petals of the flower. Cafeteria, which food is the healthiest that is served each week in your personal opinion? I don't need somebody else's point of view. I don't want an adult's point of view. I don't want what's on the label. I just want to know, what do you think is the truth? Social studies. Right is the sign language symbol. About the importance of learning from the past as a country. Doesn't have a question mark. It's just a statement. And so they have to just answer. They have to respond with what you would call a controlling idea statement in 7th grade or a thesis statement in 9th grade. And there's thousands of kids each year that get zeros because they don't know how to answer a prompt, a topic with a complete sentence. In other words, they don't know how to go from the red petal to the yellow stem and turn a 0 into what I would call a 1 because there's a clearly written controlling idea statement. About the importance of learning from the past as a country. If we don't learn from our history as a nation, notice that I changed the word so I don't have too much repetition as the reader's reading my essay, because the reader is the eater of my words. I don't want to be repeating all the time. If we don't learn from our mistakes as a nation, we are doomed to keep repeating those same errors over and over again for eternity. And then in the body, your students would have to tell you why they believe that, give some examples of certain people or certain events that took place currently or in the past that support that controlling idea statement or that thesis. In the computer lab, we could say a when question. When is it safe to shut down a computer? So if I say, you know what, this time I want you to respond, but verbalize your capitalization when you respond. Capital. It is safe to shut down a computer once you have closed down all of the programs that are being used and anything else that has been opened. I'm not saying period, because I just want to practice capitalization, because I mentioned in yesterday's training, in capitalization, such as your name, your city, your state, the title on a paper, the date, the school, the teacher, I don't have to write whole sentences to learn capitalization. So I would recommend you teach capitalization in terms of modeling and mentoring before you teach punctuation. If you're actually going to be a teacher and teach writing instead of assigning it, teach capitalization, then teach punctuation. Then they can merge those two worlds. So I'll do one more with capitalization. Where is my kinesthetic movement for science? Where do herbivores get their daily nutrition to survive? And if I'm going to practice reading, I would say, capital, where do herbivores get their daily nutrition to survive? Question mark. And for those of you who attended the punctuation training, you would bounce an imaginary ball on the floor. Capital. Animals that only eat vegetation or fruits rely completely on those vegetables and sweet substances for their nutrition in order to stay alive, period. The playground. Who is in charge of the students during lunch, recess, question mark. Capital. Usually a teacher from that grade level has to come out once a week and monitor the students during recess so they don't get into mischief or hurt each other, period. PE, right. Capital, write a paragraph explaining, and so sometimes this was an accident, but sometimes we do it on purpose. Your brain moves faster than your pencil can, so you'll accidentally leave off letters. That was done by accident. So when my recheck, I would hopefully pick it up like I do right now. Capital, write a paragraph explaining whether you've got to pick something between two things or not. Practice has an effect on quality of play, period. So in distant learning, remote learning, when it comes to sports, unless you're very committed and dedicated, you probably won't be practicing a lot if they're not requiring you to be in person. So practice plays an integral role, capital, intense, dedicated, and committed practice. Those are commas in a series. You would need one or two commas depending on how you teach that. Play a role that is very crucial in determining how good you get at a particular sport, period. In the halls, capital, which side should students walk on when walking through the halls at school? Question mark. Response, capital. It would make the most sense for students to pretend they are like cars, simile, and stay to the right when walking one direction in the hall, and the students, comma, and the students coming from the opposite way would also be walking to their right, period, capital. That way you would not be bumping into each other as you're moving from one class to the next, period. That was me telling you the answer and telling you why it was the answer. That would be Wonder Woman, what's the answer and why? The library, how? How can you explain the difference between the fiction and nonfiction section? Question mark. That one I was only practicing punctuation. The fiction section has realistic stories, things that could happen, but not necessarily have happened to people or animals. Some of the fiction is fantasy, where they have animals that can talk, and in fiction, in the fiction section of the library, There are both people and animals having experiences that are realistic, but of course animals cannot talk in real life unless you're lucky enough to own a parrot, possibly. The nonfiction section is what I would call the expository section. Capital. The nonfiction section is what I would, capital I, would call the expository section because it has books that explain information about a specific or given topic, period. Number 12, restroom. Capital. What is the proper procedure when washing your hands? Question mark. It's a very important topic right now, whether you're at school, at home, or anywhere. And we try to answer questions without repeating. It's not a good idea to tell your students, repeat the question. No, that's called restating. Restating is repeating, and repeating is a formulaic way that hurts the student's grade because we don't need to restate the prompt. We don't need to restate the question. So if you have a program that's telling your kids to do that, that's one of the reasons they're getting a lower grade. They want you to respond to the prompt, not restate the prompt. You don't have to be restating your central idea. You just have to respond to the topic with an idea. And you can restate the prompt if you need to, if you feel like that's absolutely necessary. But if your kids state the prompt in their introduction and their central idea or controlling idea or thesis in the introduction, and then you're telling them to restate that same thing again, that's called repetition. And I want the appetizer, the introduction, to look different than the meat and the vegetable, the body, and the dessert, the conclusion. Don't make me eat the same words over and over just because you want some formulaic, repetitious way. That is hurting your kid's score because the reader is the eater of my words, and I don't want to make them eat the same words in the ending just because that's the way we've always been taught. No, I want a reflection. How was my life different, better, or worse because of what I've just been sharing with you? That's the best way to end a paper. How has my life been transformed? What change, what impact has this writing experience had on me if we all choose to implement what I've shared with you? Last one, what? Capital. What are three items you can find in the nurse's office at school? Question mark. And I apologize, my penmanship is not the neatest. I was trying to rush and do this. I'm actually barbecuing on my grill at the same time that I'm having this little mini webinar with you guys. So I'm hoping my food is not burning as we speak. Capital. The three objects that most likely would be visible in a nurse's office would probably be a stethoscope, comma, a thermometer, comma, and a blood pressure monitor, period. That was just me speaking off the top of my head. There's some other ones that would be a scale, and you could tell why they need those things. So something I'm going to do next with you guys is on page 12. I'm going to skip page 11 for a second. Page 12 is called Sentence C.P.R, and that'll be the next part. So this second section, guys, is what I call Sentence C.P.R, where you want to help your kids with their writing, but when you see their content, you see very simple sentences. They're like, as you can see here, 3 words long, 5 words long, 6 words long. And I say in the training, I said it on page 1 or 2, it says, my age or more will get us a good score. I would only want a 3-year-old to give me 3 words, or a 4-year-old on a 3-year-old ability level to give me 3 words. So sentence CPR is saying, I want to add some life to sentences by putting in more descriptive words. I want you to notice something. I intentionally started many of these sentences, these dead sentences, with the word I. All the I's are circled like eyeballs. The two it's, I'm pointing to them with arrows. And the word the was underlined. And so there were only 3 words that started these sentences. And so the goal is to do something that I would call around the words in 80 ways. Start your sentences not just with the topic, make sure they're not about the topic, but make sure also that you start sentences with different words. We have to talk about being tired, about something being fun, going inside, and water, but we don't necessarily have to start with the word I. I went ahead and purchased when I went to Mexico today to get some medicine. I bought myself a little mariachi hat because too many kids, like my son and daughter, who are the leaders of their mariachi group at PSA Memorial High School, they might sing that song that goes something like this. I like to start with I all the time. And we saw the, the, the. We saw it, it, and then, and then, and then, and then, and then. So, suck my toe all the way to Mexico. No, we don't want to do that. So let's start sentences with different words. And so you can have a rule, and I mentioned it yesterday to you guys in the webinar. Make sure that when your kids are looking at their whole paragraph or their whole essay, that they don't have any 2 sentences in a row that start with the same word. I can use the word I once in a while, and it's very, what's a nice way of saying this? It's very ludicrous to tell students they can't use the word I on expository or persuasive, because it says on the 4 rubric in the Texas Education Agency scoring guide, you seem to be writing from your own point of view and perspective. In other words, the way that I see this topic. If they don't share their opinions, their emotions, their perspective, they won't get the student's point of view. When I take off my glasses, the world does not change just the way I see it. And so they're not asking for an adult point of view or a third person point of view. Some people think, stop telling kids that. They want to know, what do you think about this topic? Give me your voice. That's what makes the essay thoughtful and engaging. So yes, you can use the word I, just don't begin with the word I all the time. And I want to tell you a little secret. When God created us, the one way that he can tell a lot of us apart and we can tell each other apart is that our face looks the same. So if my whole body was like a sentence that starts with a capital, and this is my first word, why did he make us look different right here? He was probably a writing teacher that said, you know what? I want to make everyone's first word, I want to make everyone's face look a little bit different. That way they don't accidentally talk to the wrong person. So, it's kind of corny, but you can also tell your kids, you know what? We don't want the last word, our shoes, to be the same either. Make sure that our first word and our last word is a little bit different. And that's why I think that playing around the words in 80 ways is a great activity. So let me show you using page 12, sentence C.P.R, a couple of ideas. The example that's there is I was tired, and I saw I had made a mistake when I wrote the example, the modeling. I was tired can be changed to capital. I was so exhausted, the vocabulary, from the long meeting that capital I literally had to drag my limp, comma, aching body. And you have to test the comma. If you can say aching limp body, then you can put a comma. If you can say limp and aching body, then you can put a comma. Whenever if you say my 3 sour pickles, 3 and sour, I wouldn't put a comma because that doesn't make sense. My sour and 3, that doesn't make sense when you flip them around. So that's one way to tell. That's a good comma test. If you can put the word and between them or flip them around, then it's okay. From the long meeting that I had to drag my limp comma aching body to my waiting Mustang, capital convertible, and passed out for the next 4 hours period. The reason that I don't need a comma is because I'm only doing 2 things. I'm dragging my body and I'm passing out. So dragging my body is one predicate, something that I'm doing, and passing out for the next 4 hours. Because there's only 2 things being done there in that situation, we don't need to join them with a comma. I'm not sure why I did that. Now, since I started with the word I can't do that again. And so my examples don't start with I. It was fun. 3 words, great if you're 3 years old. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This would be great for a 10-year-old. And I circled exhilarating because that's someone's opinion. And I put a V whenever I thought there was high vocabulary. Capital. Today was the most exhilarating experience in a long time! Exclamation point. Because fun is used by way too many kids, way too many times, on way too many essays. Essay. I went inside is going to be changed to when, as soon as I heard the news, I rushed into the class. That was me showing you capitalization and punctuation kinesthetically. I didn't say capital or comma or period. I just put on my cap. I bounced the ball on my table for a comma and on the floor for a period. That's me going inside the class. Last one. I looked at the blue water. Looked past tense. I'm going to try and keep it in past tense. My gaze spanned the entire horizon of the vast ocean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 words. But I tell my kids, if you want to get extra credit, that's 1 sentence. But I'm going to give you extra credit. If I give you a little monkey that looks like an S because of that sentence, I'll give you an extra monkey for gazed, an extra monkey for spanned, an extra monkey for horizon, and another one for vast. Because you have 1 sentence, but the 4th bullet says to your students, or the 3rd bullet in secondary says, choose your words carefully. If your kids are doing that, all of a sudden, that's 1 sentence quantity turns into a 5 detail quality. All right, so here's another way to do this. On number 5, I'm going to play a little game with you called, what is on the previous page? It's called Deal With It. So number 5 is hearing a sound. So Deal With It is on you in your handout. Those of you that took the training, go to page 17 and you'll find Deal With It, where you use a deck of cards to make students write a sentence of exactly the amount of words that they're dealt. And as you can see here, a 10 will be 10, a jack will be 11 words, queen stands for 12, and a king for 13. If you happen to get a joker, it's wild and the kid can write however many words he wants in the sentence, but it has to be a complete thought. Let's roll is the same concept, but with dice. And I'm going to have 3 dice because we're trying to do sentence C.P.R. I wouldn't want to use 1 die for 4th grade or higher, because the idea is you want to end up having my age or more to get a good score. And fourth graders are 9 or 10 years old. The only reason I would use one die with a fourth grader is he's a fourth grader on a first grade ability level. If he's 6 years old in ability level, then I would let him roll one die and he'd have to make his thought about this topic, hearing a sound. So let's deal with it is the name of the game. So I have some cards here. I'm going to count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right, whatever this card is, I'm going to have to make my topic was hearing a sound. So whatever I write has to do with something that uses my ears. And let's see what number. I got a 9, so I have to deal with it. I have to come up with a sentence that has 9 words in it having to do with a sound. During the webinar, I could hear my chicken burning, period. Now, during the webinar, it's just 3 words. That's called an introductory phrase. On short introductory phrases, things that don't have a subject and a predicate, you don't have to put a comma. When something has, like, today I liked what I ate for breakfast, I don't need a comma after today because it's a one-word introductory phrase. When the introductory phrase has 4 words or more, there's an unwritten rule that says you can put a comma. So 9 words having to do with hearing a sound. So I would say, and I'm going to just do it with my mouth to save time, during this webinar, comma, it's optional, capital, I could hear my chicken burning, period. And you don't normally hear burning, but that means that I've allowed my chicken to get so hot, you can hear the sizzling sound of chicken that's not doing well anymore. I just checked on it a few minutes ago in case you're worried. One side was a little too black, but I turned it over before I started this activity so that you could enjoy this without me worrying about my chicken. Okay, so the other one says, let's roll. Capital, let us, I tossed the ball up in the air because there's an apostrophe here, a contraction. What does let's mean? Let us. And so you can make them toss the imaginary ball up in the air and then separate the words from each other. Let us, capital roll, exclamation. So our number, we're gonna be talking about number 6 on this one. The sky is nice, okay? Present tense, sky looks nice. That's my topic, my red light. I need some idea, but I want a complete sentence that actually talks about the sky and how nice it looks, some descriptive word that describes nice. What you might do is have your kids, whenever it has words like that, they've got to put an up arrow if it's positive or a down arrow if it's negative. And so because nice is positive, I need to make sure I respond to that. Let me give you an example. In 4th grade, a couple years ago, they told your students, write about something that's difficult. Difficult is a negative term. And so if your kids wrote about riding a horse and they talked about how wonderful it was and how much they enjoy it, they would get a lower grade, a lot of zeros. I think there were 14,000 zeros that year. And what happened was the kids wrote about an idea that could be difficult, but everything in the body was how much they enjoyed it, which meant they were not responding to the specific demands of the prompt, the topic. So I'm going to roll my dice so that you can see what comes out. 10, 13. So 13 words. If you're in 7th grade, you're about 12 or 13. If I'm with a 4th grader, I might just use 2 dice. That way the maximum I could get is 12, because some kids, if you're not careful, they'll end up having a run-on and not even realizing it. And don't worry about that. If they have a run-on, you can say, oh, that's a TMI. Not too much information, but a teachable moment of instruction or a teachable moment of intervention where you can say, yes, that's about the sky looking nice, but you have a run-on there. So I'm going to try to figure out 13 words about the sky looking nice. So here we go. You can see the sky behind me there, so I'm going to talk about that sky since it's right there visible to you. My eyes were completely, so if you want to help your kids, this is just a rough draft, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can make sure they count as they go so they don't go past or stay short. My eyes were completely mesmerized. Vocabulary. By the 7, captivating, and I'm having to think of this on the fly, so I gotta be careful that I get to my 13. Captivating sunset. One word. I need 10, 11, 12, 13. I need 4 more words. Behind the Rocky Mountains. And tell your kids, underline capitals, proper nouns, and titles. So number 12 is Rocky, and 13 is mountains. Okay. And once again, underline proper nouns, capitals, and titles. So if you notice, I didn't start with I ended with mountains, and so I try to start and end differently. Like we have different shoes to end our bodies, not always wearing the same shoes, and not always starting with the word I. So that is the activity called sentence CPR combined with the game Let's Roll and Deal with It. If you have kinder or pre-K, you might use one big die like this. I roll a 4, then you look at the next one, and it could just be verbal. The trees are big. It already has 4 words, okay? So what you can say is you have to change. If you can go like this and tell your kids, what, W, say, I want you to wow me. Use the same amount of words, but say, what other word or what other words could I use? Well, I'm going to just change the word big to something different because I've already got 4 words. Capital, the trees are enormous. Enormous. 3 syllables. I should be able to handle 3 syllables as long as I'm in 3rd grade or higher with spelling. The more syllables, the harder it is to get through the spelling word for some kids. So I'll do one more with you, and we'll try 2 dice for number 8. 12. It had to be a big number. So the food tasting good. I'll practice just with my mouth. The barbecued chicken was absolutely scrumptious. I get to 12. Even though I wasn't watching it, period. Most of the time when you're doing barbecue, somebody has to be right there with the chicken all the time. So my dog's out there. Thankfully, it has a lid. The other day, she jumped up and decided that the chicken was just too irresistible to leave there. So she took it. So I was a little bit frustrated with her. So that concludes today's video. I'm hoping that you enjoyed the activities. Let's review what we did together. Subject writing. Let me let you see what I'm seeing there. Sorry about that. Subject writing, starting with different petals on the flower, answering the question in a complete sentence, answering the question focusing on capitalization, answering the question focusing on punctuation, answering the question focusing on both. Then we went and did sentence C.P.R, adding words to sentences to bring them to life, starting sentences with different words. And we close by playing a card game, Deal With It, and a dice game, Let's Roll. And it's amazing how your kids will be writing, playing these 2 games, and want to keep going forever and ever. The last one on that page was called Take a Number. Sometimes they sell these little magnetic numbers at Dollar Tree or Walmart, and you can just put all the numbers in a bag from like 1 to 9, let's say, and whatever number your kids pull out, that's the number that their sentence has to have in words. Their idea or their answer about the topic has to match. And so it's just kind of a neat way to practice writing sentences of different lengths. Do me a favor, please share this video with your ELAR and writing teacher friends. There's a lot of great ideas in here. This is not the way to teach writing, but it just seems to make it more enjoyable. If you're enjoying yourself, then the kids will be enjoying themselves. So be sure to email me at writing, WRITING, _ doctor spelled out DOCTOR at yahoo.com, or feel free to message me if you have any questions. I often make videos based specifically on the questions that teachers pose in emails or in Facebook Messenger and sometimes on Instagram. So feel free to touch bases with me. I'm going to post this to Facebook and to my YouTube page. Please be kind and like it and subscribe to my YouTube page. Share the video with some of your writing or reading ELAR teacher friends. Many of these activities should be and can be done in multiple grades with multiple teachers. I basically took every subject and almost every location you can go to at school and asked open-ended questions about things that they might learn that particular week, topics I would learn that week, or teaks that I would learn that week if I'm a subject teacher. So God bless you guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Those of you who paid for part 1 of the webinar will be getting part 3. Will be how to explode a story in a personal narrative and how to explain one reason in expository, zooming in and being specific in your response, writing a specific response that responds to a particular topic. Goodbye and God bless.